So he never wrote about his wife, Ethel. So he's at this point really, really weak, and his leg has a wound in it from getting shot, and he is waiting for death to come take it over. And in a way, it's kind of related to Scorpio. There was some sense of it. Okay, let's continue, everybody.
Bombing officer had been hit by a stick bomb someone in a German patrol had thrown as he was coming in through the wire that night, and screaming and begged everyone to kill him. He was a fat man, very brave and a good officer, although addicted to fantastic shows. But that night he was caught in the wire with a flare lighting him up, and his bowels spilled out into the wire, so when they brought him in alive, they had to cut him loose. "Shoot me, Harry, for Christ's sake, shoot me." They'd had an argument one time about our Lord never sending you anything you couldn't bear, and someone's theory had been that meant that at a certain time the pain passed you out automatically. But he'd always remembered Williamson that night. Nothing passed out Williamson until he gave him all his morphine tablets that he'd always saved to use himself. And they didn't work right away. Still, this now that he had was very easy. If it was no worse as it went on, there was nothing to worry about, except that he would rather be in better company. He thought a little about the company that he would like to have. No, he thought, when everything you do too long and do too late, you can't expect to find the people still there. The people all are gone. The party's over. And you are with your hostess now. I'm getting as bored with dying as with everything else, he thought. It's a bore, he said out loud. What is, my dear? Anything you do too bloody long. He looked at her face between him and the fire. She was leaning back in the chair, and the firelight shone on her pleasantly lined face, and he could see that she was sleepy. He heard the hyena make a noise just outside the range of the fire. "I'd been writing," he said, "but I got tired. Did you think you'll be able to sleep?" "Pretty sure. How did you turn in?" "I'd like to sit here with you." "Do you feel anything strange?" she asked her. "No, just a little sleepy." "I do," he said. He just felt death come by again. "You know, the only thing I've never lost is curiosity," he said to her. "You've never lost anything. You're the most complete man I've ever known." "Christ," he said. "How little a woman knows. What is that, your intuition?" Because just then death had come and rested its head in the foot of the cot, and he could smell its breath. "Never believe any of that about a sight and a skull," he told her. "It can be two bicycle policemen as easily. Or be a bird, or it can have a wide snout like a hyena." It had moved up on him now, but it had no shape anymore. It simply occupied space. Got it to go away. It didn't go away, but moved a little closer. "You've got a hell of a breath," he told her. "You stinking bastard." It moved up closer to him still, and now he couldn't speak to it. And when it saw he couldn't speak, it came a little closer. And now he tried to send it away without speaking, but it moved in on him, so its weight was all on his chest. And while it crouched there, and he couldn't move or speak, he heard the woman say, "One is asleep now. Take the cot up very gently and carry it into the tent." He couldn't speak to tell her to make it go away, and it crouched now heavier so that he couldn't breathe. And then, while they lifted the cot, suddenly it was all right. And the weight went from his chest. It was morning. It had been morning for some time, and he heard the plane. It showed very tiny and then made a wide circle, and the boys ran out and lit the fires using kerosene and piled on grass so there were two big smudges at each end of the level place, and the morning breeze blew them toward the camp, and the plane circled twice more, low this time, and then glided down and leveled off and landed smoothly, and coming walking toward him was old Compton, in slacks, a tweed jacket, and a brown felt hat. "What's the matter, old cop?" Compton said. "Bad leg," he told him. "Will you have some breakfast?" "Thanks, I'll just have some tea." The push him off, you know. I won't be able to take them inside. There's only room for one. Your Laura's on the way. Helen had taken Compton aside and was speaking to him. Compton came back more cheery than ever. "We'll get you right in," he said. "I'll be back for them, ma'am. Now, I'm afraid I'll have to stop at a roofer to refuel. We'd better get going. What about the tea? I don't really care about it, you know." The boys had picked up the cot and carried it around the green tents and down along the rock and out onto the plain and along past the smudges that were burning brightly now, the grass all consumed, and the wind fanning the fire to the little plain. It was difficult getting him in, but once in, he lay back in the leather seat, and the leg was stuck straight out to one side of the seat where Compton sat. Compton started the motor and got in. He waved to Helen and to the boys, and as the clatter moved into the old familiar roar, they swung around with Compy watching for warthog holes and roared, bumping along the stretch between the fires. And with the last bump rose, and he saw them all standing below, waving, and the camp beside the hill flattening now, and the plain spreading, clumps of trees and the bush flattening, while the game trails ran now smoothly to the dry water holes. And there was a new water that he'd never known of. The zebra, small rounded backs now, and the wildebeest, big-headed dots seeming to climb as they moved in long fingers across the plain, now scattering as the shadow came toward them. They were tiny now, and the movement had no gallop, and the plain as far as you could see, gray-yellow now, and ahead old Compy's tweed back and the brown felt hat. Then they were over the first hills, and the wildebeest were trailing up them, and then they were over mountains with sudden depths of green rising forest and the solid bamboo slopes, and then the heavy forest again, sculptured into peaks and hollows until they crossed, and hills sloped down, and then another plain, hot now, and purple-brown, bumpy with heat, and Compy looking back to see how he was riding. Then there were other mountains, dark ahead. And then instead of going on to Arusha, they turned left. He evidently figured that they had the gas, and looking down, he saw a pink sifting cloud moving over the ground and in the air, like the first snow in a blizzard that comes from nowhere. And he knew the locusts were coming up from the south. Then they began to climb, and they were going to the east, it seemed. And then it darkened, and they were in a storm, the rain so thick it seemed like flying through a waterfall. And then they were out, and Compy turned his head and grinned and pointed, and there ahead, all he could see, as wide as all the world, great, high, and unbelievably white in the sun, was the square top of Kilimanjaro. And then he knew that there was where he was going. Just then, the hyena stopped whimpering in the night and started to make a strange, human, almost crying sound. The woman heard it and stirred uneasily. She didn't wake. In her dream, she was at the house on Long Island, and it was the night before her daughter's debut. Somehow her father was there, and he'd been very rude. Then the noise the hyena made was so loud she woke, and for a moment she didn't know where she was, and she was very afraid. Then she took the flashlight and shone it on the other cot that they'd carried in after Harry had gone to sleep. She could see his bulk under the mosquito bar, but somehow he'd gotten his leg out and it hung down alongside the cot. The dressings had all come down and she couldn't look at it. "Molo," she called. "Molo, Molo." Then she said, "Harry, Harry." And her voice rising, "Harry, please. Oh, Harry." There was no answer, and she couldn't hear him breathing. Outside the tent, the hyena made the same strange noise that had awakened her, but she did not hear him for the beating of her heart.
Okay. Oh, all right, everybody. So, we read that. This is going to be another one that we're going to be doing later this month, which is going to be entitled The Blue Hotel by Stephen Crane. I don't know if you've, heard of, Stephen Crane, but that's going to be our next thing that we're going to do. But for now, so, now we know how it ends, which is kind of, tragic. So what's going to happen is all of you now have the opportunities to fill out those things, and then we can get going with something else another time.